statewide, nationwide, worldwide, wherever you're watching, welcome into the Line to Gain show on the Buffalo Rumblings Network. I am the Big O, Jerry Ostroski. She is Sara Larson. I am in just stifling Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm sure it's hot in Miami, but I would imagine it's probably a little bit more pleasant than it is here. But welcome in.
Humid.
Wednesday nights. Yes, definitely. Humid here as well. But welcome in Wednesday nights, 9 Eastern, 8 Central. We'll be at that time slot the rest of the year right here on your best source for Buffalo Bills content.
Hey, I like that.
The Buffalo Rumblings Network. Sara, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's definitely been hot. We've been taking a 3 to 5 mile walk, depending on how we feel every day. And by the time I get home, I'm drenched in the morning. So it's been a fun couple of days with all this heat. But it's one of those things that I complain when I'm too cold and I complain when I'm too hot. So I can't figure out a nice medium.
Do you take? Do you get to go to the beach much? Do you go down to the beach? I mean, are you close to the beach?
Well, I'm 15, 20 minutes from the beach. It's not that far at all. Probably, I would say 15 minutes. It's the process to go to the beach that is such a pain down here. Trying to find parking, trying to lug everything from your car. So when I go to the beach, honestly, it's like maybe twice a year down here. I usually go up to Brevard County to like Melbourne or Cocoa Beach.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends up that way, and it's so much easier. So much easier. So they have tons of parking across the street, and everything is just really easy. So when I do go to the beach, it's usually up that way. I'll go up that way a couple times a year. But, I do go to Fort Lauderdale Beach or Hollywood Beach probably like once or twice a year down here. So it's terrible. Everyone says, you live where, or I live where everyone, vacations. And I love the beach. Don't get me wrong. I love the beach. I just want to relax when I go to the beach. I don't want it to be what it is. It's too much work down here to enjoy it.
Well, most people in Oklahoma, I know Texas, this area, we go down what they call the Redneck Riviera, right? We hit Destin and that whole stretch, the Panhandle. Mm-hmm. And lately, everybody to a person comes back. And my experience down there was, it was shoulder to shoulder. It was claustrophobic. There were so many people. And it seems like that's the consensus. Everybody come back. So, hey, whatever it is, man, people are hitting Florida. They're spending their money down there going to the beach. But
I know a couple of beaches that don't get too busy. You got to know some of the, the not really private beaches, but some of the more secluded beaches. Exactly. So, when I don't want to deal with that, it's still a pain to find parking, though. That's the one thing that, the South Florida beaches are very hard when it comes to parking.
Well, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Like I said, we're here every week, Wednesday, 9 Eastern, 8 Central, Buffalo Rumblings Network. It's Line to Gain. And we got a lot to get into tonight. And I've been doing a little bit of research on this, and it's this phenomenon lately that we've all been witnessing, and that is the running back contract situation. How are the elite running backs in the NFL being compensated?
Right.
And just to give you a little bit of a kind of a background or a history, at one time, of course, the running back was maybe, if not the quarterback, right after the quarterback, the marquee position on an offense. You think of the likes of, you're in Miami, so Larry, and I'm gonna go over your head with this one, but Larry Zonka and Tony Dorsett and Wilbert Montgomery and OJ, you got all these running backs, right? And they were the marquee guy, like the kid in the neighborhood. What was he doing if he wasn't playing quarterback? He's like, I'm the running back. I'm Roger Craig, or, I'm Franco Harris. And now all of a sudden, the running back position, when you look at the rankings, when you look at how positions are compensated monetarily, the last position compensated on a team is kicker. Right now, the running backs are just above kicker as far as the value of their deals and what they're signing.
I thought they were just below. I think that they just released something. They might be just below.
They're even below kickers?
I think I read the other day that the average running back salary is a smidgen below kickers at this point.
And it would not shock me. It
Yeah.
would not shock me. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to tell a little bit of history of, kind of what I believe to be the situation, why things are the way they are. I think a lot of it, and one of the things that I don't agree with, and if you've been watching the news lately, you've been seeing the clips, and it seems that these guys, Saquon and others, are kind of banding together in group texts and chats and phone calls, and you continually hear the blame being put upon the ownership.
Right.
And I don't believe that. That's not where I think the blame should be
Well,
placed.
I think just first and foremost, before we get too far into it, you'd have to probably be under a rock at this point to not know what has been going on. But just in case people haven't been paying attention a lot, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, and Saquon Barkley, they were all franchise tagged, at the start of the league's year, and they were not able to come to a long-term deal on, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, whatever day it was, so that they had to get the long-term deal in by. They weren't. Pollard's the only one out of those three that have actually signed their franchise, the tag. So Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley could potentially, at this point, miss game time. So that's why everyone's, talking about it. But, I think that we wouldn't be talking about it as much if they weren't, two of the best running backs in the NFL. And, Christian McCaffrey got his money 2 years ago. He got his extension. So I think that, the people are willing to take a little bit of a risk, but it just depends on the team. And now you got a couple of running backs sitting out there that are struggling to get seen and get the respect that they deserve. And the one thing I will say before I let you continue with the GM's talk is, to me, Saquon is what, 80-90% of that offense.
Right.
If anyone, let's take out even the injuries in the beginning of his career. He came back last year and proved what he still is. If anyone deserved to get a raise or an extension this offseason, it was him. And instead, they gave it to Daniel Jones. Not saying that Daniel Jones doesn't deserve, his payday too, but he hasn't really shown that he deserves it. Saquon has, and I think that that's where I'm struggling. But continuing what you were saying about the GMs.
But and we will get in that in a second. But kind of just to rebut a little bit of what you had to say. I kind of liken that to, and you talk about Daniel Jones getting his money and Saquon not. I kind of liken that to the guy that goes to school for anthropology, right? You go to school, you get a 4-year degree in anthropology, probably go to a private university, spend a lot of money. Then you go ahead and get your master's in anthropology. Then you probably go ahead and get your doctorate in anthropology. And guess what's going to happen? You're probably not going to make any money, right?
Yes.
Basically, the point I'm making is that, this is still a business. Owners own teams because they're smart with their money. And the fact that this is happening falls solely on the shoulders of the NFL Players Association and the players that went ahead and passed the last collective bargaining agreement.
Right. I will say to that argument though, Jerry, is when some of these players were in high school, running back was the right. A position. So
when Gene Upshaw ran the union, Gene Upshaw teamed with Paul Tagliabue, and they both made more money than they ever have in the history of the league together. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that when it comes to these kids, when they're the position they chose to play or the position they're good at playing, you can't really fault them, because 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, when they were kind of being bred for that position, it was the it spot on the roster. So now they go to college and they're taking up being a running back, not realizing that in 4 years they're screwed. So my one thing that I wanted to say, and then I wanted to kind of get into kind of the discussion that we had about your discussions with some agents and people that you've talked to. When it comes to blaming the GMs, and the only thing we can say is it's a business. So yes, they're doing what's right for their business within the confines of what the rules are currently. We have a salary cap in the NFL. You can't exceed, the cap. You're, restricted to that, to that dollar amount. On top of that, you have, and I believe it was you that said it last night, you have a quarterback that you're paying, a good 30-40% of your salary cap.
Yep.
You are going to make sure he has the weapons to throw to, and you're going to make sure he is protected on his line. So the one position that tends to get, let down at that point is the running backs. And, we've seen kind of the lifespan of, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but the lifespan of a running back is a little bit shorter than the rest of the positions. And therefore, it's kind of, you get a rookie, and now they're doing this run by committee. A lot of teams, they rather have 3-4 running backs and, have all of them split, reps, rather than that one running back that's going to, to get the ball 20-25 times per game.
And I'm going to, and I don't agree. Matt in the comments said teams don't want to pay the position because it's not a focus of the pro game now. I don't agree with that, and I'll get into that in a second. But when the last negotiation happened, and I said this last night, and I said it today on the radio here in Tulsa, but John Butler, who I respect, who I love, and obviously he's no longer with us, I was in a contract situation one time where I was going to take a pay cut. And John came to me, and I wasn't happy about it. He said, look, man, he says, in negotiations, somebody always has the hammer. He goes, right now, I have the hammer, and I'm going to use it. And I respected that. In this last contract negotiation, this last CBA negotiation, the NFLPA and its players had the hammer, and they didn't use it. They gave the hammer up because they wanted other things, like, say, they wanted some, and I agree with this, believe me, I think we should have lifetime insurance, but they wanted some exceptions made for player health and things like that. They wanted to do away with marijuana testing. They wanted to do away with some other stuff. They would add some stuff here and there. And because of that, they lost sight of what was important. The fact that NFL franchises were growing exponentially in value by the second. They lost track of the fact that TV contracts were getting ready to be the largest we've ever seen. And ownership had money that they've never seen before. And, you put onto that, you put the new deal with YouTube, all these things, and they traded that for other stuff. And then you come into the fact where before this last CBA was renegotiated, I think the players were getting 46% of the money. Well, they wanted more money. So the ownership said, yeah, we'll give you 46.5, but you're going to have to play a 17th game. And they agreed to it. So there goes that out the window. So you talk about player safety, but yet you just added another game, and you're also playing Thursday nights. So it's like, they did a very, very poor job. And D. Smith, for a lot of the things that he did do well, one of the weaknesses he was he was pretty combative. And when people start telling him he shouldn't do that, he digs his heels in. And because of that, if you remember correctly, he almost lost a vote of getting his position renewed by the players. They revoted, and they ended up passing it, but it was a vote of no confidence. And then just recently, they announced that he's on his way out. They got a new guy coming in. His name slips my mind, but I will say this. I do know what he's done. His entire life, his history is in finance and money. So they finally brought a guy in to run this thing that understands contracts and making money.
Right.
Because, people always picked on Gene, saying Gene was in bed with the league, whatever. But Gene had a way of doing things, and him and Paul Tagliabue made a lot of money together, not just for the owners, but also for the players. But so that's, I have a hard time blaming ownership. Like you said earlier, Sarah, they're using the rules that were put out in the CBA. They're doing the things that the players themselves have passed. And, we're going to get into a little bit where you're going to talk about, some different things that possibly could happen to help the running back situation as far as their compensation. But when you look at that position, and this, and we've talked about it, college players, the wear and tear on a college player has gone up exponentially. Offenses are going no huddle. There's more and more plays in practice. There's all the training they do on top of that. Then all the no huddle plays in games. So when running backs come to the league, they're a little bit beat up to begin with. And as we all know, the two positions, the further you get away from the ball, the more abuse you take, right? So you got the running backs and the other position that we saw a devalue of that position as well this offseason was safety right here in our own backyard, right? We saw
Yeah.
with Poyer and everything else. So they're just not going to put the money in the guys that they're worried about, you know, possibly getting hurt. But if you want to add something, that go ahead, and then I'm going to kind of come into what I talked about last night and the last couple of days with some agents and things, as far as the one situation that has happened recently in the NFL that has kind of led to this phenomenon that we're dealing with now, which is the undervalue or the devaluation of the running back spot.
Right. So, I mean, I think everyone agrees that at this point, by the time a rookie running back comes into the league, they've already, spent anywhere from, 2 to 5 years running in college, depending on, if they redshirted or not. So there's definitely a lot of wear and tear on them already. So I, agree that something needs to be figured out for them, because by the time they're getting into the league, they realize they're pretty much only going to be there on a rookie deal. And the one thing that it's a business, so the business side of this that the teams have figured out is, okay, well, we have their rookie contract. We have, if it's a first rounder, we have also the 5th year option. And then we have 2 years where we can tag them. And basically if they fall off, we're not, beholden to them the next year. We don't have that guarantee that or the dead cap that we're going to struggle with the next year. So, they found the loophole and they're working on it. So the question is now, what can we do to fix it? So we'll get into that too after you talk a little bit more about what led up to this.
So having some conversations, some intimate conversations with some agents and some things like that. It was funny because I didn't bring this person's name up, but each person to a man brought this person up as the example as to why we are where we are. So I'm going to give you the statistics of a player from the NFL, and I know you already know who this is, and we'll bring it up. So I'm not going to say, hey, guess who this is. We talked about it, but this player had 1,460 carries for 6,082 yards, 243 catches for 2,254 yards, 79 touchdowns. He was at 3 Pro Bowls. He was the Offensive Player of the Year one year. He was the Offensive Rookie of the Year one year. He was on the Pro Football Writers Association All-Rookie team. He led his franchise, still leads his franchise, or a specific franchise to this day, with 58 touchdowns. And that guy's name is Todd Gurley. And this kind of, to a person, talking to people and everything else, this is the contractor. This is the situation that a lot of general managers and a lot of front office people in the league are using as the example as to why they do not want to pay these guys the money they want. So Gurley, who came in on a rookie deal of $11.95 million, okay, was given a contract extension, and it was worth 4 years, $60 million, $45 million of that was guaranteed, which was supposed to end at the end of this year, the 2023 season. He has the amazing year. They give him the contract extension. He has knee issues that next year, never regains form of like he did the following year. The next year he has more injuries, I believe it was a quad and some other stuff. They end up releasing him 2 years into the deal, I believe, and had a $20.15 million cap hit. And, when you look at this, okay, he never played a down of his extension. And, this is also the time when Le'Veon Bell was wanting his money. He was using Gurley as the example of why I should get paid. I know we talked
Right.
about Christian McCaffrey earlier, but there's a family relationship there, right? Ed McCaffrey, John Lynch, teammates in Denver. It was a little bit different. I don't think you can discount that. But then Gurley goes to Atlanta, never regains form. He's out of the league, and they just now came to a settlement where I think he got his last 5.5 million from the Rams. But this contract right here is the prime reason. So NFL GMs and owners are saying, why should I sign these guys to an extension when you know the wear and tear they take? When I go on the free agency market, like the Bills did with Latavius Murray, and rent a guy for one season, maybe two, pay far less money and get the same production. And that's where we are because of the Gurley situation with the Rams that kind of set the table, and also Zeke in a roundabout way had the same thing happen to him in Dallas, and he's without a team right now as well.
Right. Daryl put, didn't Gurley have injury concerns coming out of college? He had the ACL injury.
ACL. Yeah, he did.
Yeah. And then I believe that what his downfall was he had very bad arthritis in his knees to the point where he just couldn't, make cuts and run anymore. So yeah, you would hope that stuff would come out in his, medicals, but he did well for, even after the ACL, he did very well for, 4 years.
Right.
So and that's why he got the extension. So, when it comes, and he was deserving of the extension. And I think that's where the problem lies, is he was deserving of the extension. They gave him the extension. And then the next year, where he was still on his rookie deal, he ended up, not earning that extension anymore. So I think they gave him the extension too early. But the problem with that is he deserved to get it early. He deserved that money at that moment. But it's, we all have that opinion, like when we talk about should all NFL contracts be guaranteed, or if they're not playing, years 3, 4, and 5, should they still get that money? If they're not playing anymore. It goes back and forth, and I know I've had my ups and downs of that conversation, because I feel one way, and then all of a sudden I'm like, no, but wait, I feel this way, and then it's like, well, wait a second, I'm contradicting myself when I have that conversation. So I think that, again, with now that we have an issue, and we've figured out the fact that we have an issue, again, Zeke, I think that it almost happened this year with Henry, because I don't think a lot of people felt like Henry was worth his contract anymore. And there was talks of him being traded. There's been talks of Saquon being traded so that they didn't have to get to this point with, having a franchise tag or having to do this extension talks. So, basically over the last couple of days, there's been a lot of people putting their GM hats on and making, their recommendations for what you think can be done. The biggest one that I've seen is to allow running backs to have a 3-year initial contract. How do you feel? How do you feel about saying a specific, a specific position having a limited contract to start?
This is like Robin Hood. This is all for one and one for all, right? We're all in this together. If a running back's going to get a 3-year deal, then a safety should get a 3-year deal. A wide receiver should get a 3-year deal. Everybody should get a 3-year deal. I think that, and the other thing you're going to get is this from the union. Okay, they are never ever going to put themselves in a position where you are going to take money away from a player, because here's the thing: if you have a rookie that has a 3-year deal, say they don't quite pan out the way that you expect, they're now gone 2 years earlier than they would have been. You know what I'm saying? So the union is really, they're really sensitive about anything that might limit the amount of money that a player would make or possibly make. I am on to what you're saying. I don't necessarily understand why we have to have a 5th-year option for a first-round pick and everybody else is a 4-year deal. I don't understand why a first-round pick gets penalized for being
My
a first round
yeah,
pick.
I think my opinion there was that was more towards the franchise itself to benefit them because they're putting that
Right.
they're putting the huge signing bonus out for first rounders. So now that they get that extra fifth year and it's a guaranteed year, kind of like a tag to begin with.
Yeah, but think about this, okay? Think about this. Think about after 4 years if Josh Allen had free agency and he didn't have the team to have the parachute to go ahead and say, oh yeah, we're gonna give you your option. You're gonna get a lot more money, but it's still going to be X amount of dollars less than what you could have made on the open market. I mean, the two things I don't like, and I know you've looked into, you're going to talk about them a little bit, or that fifth year on the first rounders. I don't agree with that. I would like everybody to be reduced to 3 years, not just running backs. I want everybody reduced to 3 years because, Sarah, what it does is, what's the average year? If you look at what they tell you all the time, the average career lasts what? 3 years, right?
Right.
So we should know what's going to happen in 3 years. I think everybody should be 3 years. But the other thing that I cannot stand, and I think it is the worst, and I don't understand why it's still in the collective bargaining agreement. Franchise and transition tags are brutal, brutal, and I think that's something that should go away as well.
Right. I think when it comes to the 3 years for everybody, I'm in agreement. I think that it actually, if you look at it from both ends, it benefits the player because they can get if they pan out, they can hit that second contract sooner. I also think that if we did the 3 year, that maybe the third year should be very heavily incentivized so that their pay is based off of more incentives. But it also helps the franchises themselves because if a team drafts bad, they can get out of that bad draft pick earlier than being handcuffed. Now, granted, if you draft somebody in the sixth round, it's not really a big deal. But if you draft a first or second rounder and you're paying them a whole heck of a lot more than you're paying a vet playing on the minimum, you want to get out of that contract. So you get out of it a lot sooner than if you had to wait the full 4 years. So I think 3 years is kind of a good compromise.
I also like Major League Baseball's arbitration. I think everybody's different, and when you put the ownership against the player in a room with a independent arbitrator, I think sometimes that is a very good thing for a player. Now, sometimes it can hurt them, but most of the time the arbitrator sides with the players, and that's another way to help with that. And I don't think we'll ever see that in football, but it's something that I do like. But we talk about running backs, and we talk about Daryl made a comment. His life expectancy was already short because of the college injury. Talking about Todd Gurley, the problem is lumping all running backs into that category. There are levels to their talent. I don't agree with that. Running backs are running backs. This is a game nowadays. We're not packing, very, very seldom are we packing two tight ends in a set. We're not running behind a fullback. We're spreading things out. We're trying to get numbers. Running backs nowadays are having the BYOB, bring their own block more often than not. I think they do take a lot more hits than they used to. It's just a different game. And even Saquon, who had the monster year last year, off of the ACL, he still has had an ACL. He still has had various quad injuries. He's had to change the way he trains because of the leg injuries he's had. A lot of people felt it was because he was squatting too much. He was too heavy in the legs. He wasn't flexible enough. He's changed the way he's trained, but it's just really hard to predict who's going to not have the attrition problems and who's going to have the attrition problems.
Right.
You talked about Derrick Henry earlier. I mean,
Yeah.
who's bigger than him, and he's had various
I think
injuries and situations.
I could be wrong, and Daryl can correct me in the comments, but I think what he was saying is the various levels of how good a player is. So like you're not going to compare Saquon Barkley to I don't want to call out a running back.
I know what you're saying. No, say it. I mean, yeah,
I feel bad doing it.
You're not going to say Saquon and Singletary are the same back. I'll say
right. There you go. Okay, we'll throw we'll throw Moto under the bus a little bit.
Right.
I was gonna say James Cook, but we haven't given him a chance yet.
Right.
So but that's the thing right there. So someone else actually on Twitter suggested, why don't we combine and have a skilled position, where if have a certain percentage of your of the offense runs through you, that basically you can take the top 5 or 10. If you're going to do the franchise tag, do it off of that skilled position who has that certain percentage or more of the offense, and you factor the tag on that. Because the problem is that you're doing the top 5, I think, franchises top 5 running back contracts. But if all the running back contracts are being reduced, then their franchise tag is now a whole heck of a lot less than it used to be. So I think that's the problem right there. And then you have certain players who got it. So now CMC's running around with a $15 million a year contract, and these you look at Saquon, and I think there was a article that was put out the other day that if you look at Bijan got more cash this year than Saquon did. Granted, it is because he got his signing bonus and everything else, and he's going to be playing on the base salary over the next couple of years. But cash wise, he made more money this year than the top 5 running backs. So it's got to be hard to for them to kind of stomach that. They have to think back and realize, I mean, Saquon was what, number 2 or 3? He was drafted right. Second or third. So he got a nice signing bonus as well. So, right. He definitely got paid up front. It just makes it harder. They tend to forget that money when they're only making $2-3 million a year, base salary.
And what the fans have to understand is that the word fair never is ever used in a contract negotiation. Nobody in that league, there are no front office people that worry about if a contract that's being given to a player is fair or not. They don't care. All they care about is, how am I going to keep the most money and not give all that money away? And, Daryl talked about, and yes, he, I do see the remarks. And like I said, I understand where he was going from. But, San Fran took a chance on Christian McCaffrey. I mean, Christian McCaffrey's been injured most of his career, has he not? He's had games he's missed almost every season. So
every season,
the Niners, they took a flyer on him. And yeah, he's an amazing player when he's healthy. Like I said, I think some of that has to do with his father, Ed and John Lynch's, friendship from the Denver Broncos back in the Super Bowl days. But there is no, that's the thing is, and I understand it. I kind of look at it as the player side of it, because to me, when I write that check, or it comes out of my paycheck, and that money goes to Washington, D.C. for my union dues, I'm not paying union dues to have a different set of rules than another guy. Okay, a union is what? We're all the same, right? We get the same
right.
2 15-minute breaks a day. We get the same holiday stuff. We do all that. I'd have to think if the players union went out and started making different deals for different positions, the electrical workers, the Teamsters, the truckers, they'd all be standing outside the office going, "What are you idiots doing, right? You're killing us." But looking at it as a player, it's not fair. And again, it's really hard for me to blame ownership, because they had the opportunity to negotiate this. And I know work stoppages suck. Fans don't want to not watch football. I don't want to not watch football.
Don't even.
Okay? I want to.
Don't take it away.
Right. I want to watch all the football I can. But sometimes, tough times call for the drastic measures. And that is, I remember when I was a kid when the strike happened in the NFL. We had a guy from where I grew up that was in the gym working out. Next thing you know, a couple days later, he's gone on a bus because he got picked up by a team as a replacement guy, right? I know that guy. He didn't look like the guy that I used to watch play that position that was in the parking lot, right?
Yeah.
Striking. But it's, so the players had the juice. Without the players, there is no game. And I know it sucks. It's a bad deal. And you wish that everybody would get paid what they wish, they feel they were worth. But in this current model, something's got to give. And right now, unfortunately, for guys to play the running back position, teams would rather rent a player for a year, have about two or three, as opposed to putting all their eggs into one basket and going with the feature back model. We had this question today, and maybe Sarah, you can help me because you're really good with trivia and history. Who's the last team that went to the Super Bowl with an exclusive feed the ball to him 30 times a game, 35 times a game running back?
Oh, geez.
And if you're on the
That much?
comments and you have examples, hit the comments up. Again, hit the like button, smash the subscribe button. We'll be here every Wednesday night at 9 Eastern, 8 Central to talk Bills football, college football. It's Line to Gain on the Rumblings Network. But if you know of somebody, seriously, like
I mean,
my
I was going
boys
to say
said,
Seattle.
exactly. Matt said it, and I think that's the one we got
Oh,
to first. Marshawn would be the one that I guess would be the closest. And here's the funny thing. They had Marshawn and they didn't give him the ball either in the Super Bowl, right?
oh yeah.
but
Might
yeah,
still be too soon for Seattle fans for that one.
right. So Marshawn comes to mind. But if I was, and I made this analogy today, Sarah, if I was in a courtroom, okay, if I was in a courtroom and I was a lawyer for the NFL and I was trying to prove my case to the judge and jury against the NFL Players Association as to why I don't want to pay a running back. And they're on the other side and they're giving me every reason why you need to pay running backs and they're important and we need to do this. My first person I would call to the witness stand would be Andy Reid. Right? Andy Reid's they've been to what? 3 Super Bowls, won 2 of them. They draft some guy named Edwards-Helaire in the first round. He has a good season, has some issues. They're like, well, so what? We'll throw him over there. We'll draft some guy named Pacheco, and we'll throw him in a tailback, and we'll just go ahead and win another one, right? That seems to be the way the model is. It's find the next guy up.
I have a question for you. So, what do you feel most running backs? What do you feel like their life expectancy is when it comes to their best years? Do you think that it matters whether or not they're 20 years old yet, or do you think it matters that they usually don't hit that stride until they're 23, 24 because they're going up against bigger guys? Obviously, there's some type of difference between college and pro. So how do you feel? What do you feel are those years?
I think that a back comes in and by the third season, he should be pretty comfortable with what he's doing. And I think that a really good back in the league anymore, if you get probably 7 good years, so years 3, 4, and 5 are their really, really strong productive years. And if they get beat up, maybe 6 not quite as good, 7 depends on luck with injuries. I'd say probably a long running back career is probably going to be 6 or 7 years, and that's
But do you think it correlates with their age? So do you think that by the time they're 28, they're already on the downward swing, as most of these people?
Well, I think so. I mean, probably a couple years younger than most of the league, because as we talked about earlier this year in contract negotiations, 30 is that magic number in the NFL, right? If somebody hits 30, all of a sudden they don't want to pay them. They're on the downhill side of their career unless you're just a free quarterback, right? I mean, you can take the quarterbacks out of the equation. But to see guys like Thurman and watch, being able to play with him and watch him do what he did and the 15,000 yards and play the way he played is amazing. Absolutely amazing. One thing about Thurman that nobody, talks about is, he wasn't the biggest back, but because of that, he was so shifty. He never took collisions head on. He always, he took kind of glancing blows as opposed to head on stuff. They might have got him every now and then, but it was very, very few and far between because he was so good at being shifty. But to watch him do what he did over that long career, it's amazing. And he also came into the NFL with a question mark. With we all know the story with the ACL and everything else. But
The
to
reason
see
why I
him,
asked, I'm sorry, I was just going
no,
to say
you're fine. Go ahead.
the reason why I asked the question was because another one of these suggestions was allow players to start uh, to declare early and to get into the NFL earlier.
Yeah.
Um, Again, we already talked about not singling out the position, but do you feel like a 20-year-old running back is going to come into the NFL and excel, or do you think that they need more years developing in college, which kind of sucks for them because by the time they get to the NFL, they've already had 4 years of wear and tear.
No, I think you're right, and I've been a proponent for coming out earlier as far as players and from college to the pros for a long time now. I don't think that you should. There's a lot of people that are scared to death of bringing a younger guy in, but let's face facts with the training, the way these guys look coming out of college. Younger players can be very successful in the NFL. You don't have to wait 3 years before you come in. Um, no, I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that's a big deal, especially nowadays. A lot of guys that have aspirations going to the NFL, you look at NIL now and the way guys are getting paid, you might as well go to the league and get really paid, right?
Right.
I don't see the reason why we're holding guys back as much
I
as we
think
used
that the assessment on the players will be harder to make to decide whether or not someone's ready. I think that that's going to be the hardest thing. So you're risking that draft pick a lot more to pick somebody younger. Matt asked, why did Thurman, Emmett, and Barry, play so well for so long? And I know you were kind of, talking about that, but since that was more during your time, do you feel like anything was different back then?
I think there was a difference. One of the biggest differences was college. I don't think college football put the wear and tear on the players going into the league the way that it does now, especially that position. We did run the no huddle, but the pace at which the Bills ran the no huddle at the time was lightning fast. Today would be considered slow. I just think the amount of plays the players have on them now before they even get to the league is much different than it used to be. Um, I think the style of offenses were different. I think that you look at the way we played with two tight ends a lot of the time. You had a fullback. Emmett Smith had Moose Johnson in front of him the whole time, right? I know Thurman didn't have a fullback, but a lot of times we'd hop into two tight ends. And again, Thurman was a freak. I mean, he was able to not take anything head on. It was just different. So I think a lot of it had to do with not just the style of the offenses that we played back then, but also what was going on in college as they came into the pros. Because I
Yeah.
agree with, Daryl kind of said it earlier, and I agree with others. If we talked about it I've talked about it with some friends and everything, and I talked about it with my guys last night. A lot of players are coming into the league with exponentially high amounts of wear and tear on them.
Yeah, I think that's
You
the one benefit that we have with James Cook right now is he was pretty much that off pace third down, back
Right.
for Georgia, so he doesn't have as much wear and tear. And then he split carries last year with
Well,
Singletary. So
my favorite back in the league is that way, Sarah. I mean, Josh Jacobs is that way. I mean, Josh was a third down back at Alabama. He didn't take a ton of wear and tear at Bama. I mean, he's primed to have an unbelievable season. Unfortunately, he's caught in the conundrum that he can't get out of, which is
right,
what's going on with paying running backs.
yeah, and but again, if they're handing the ball off to him 20-25 times a game, and he's getting the brunt of that offense, just like Saquon. They, I feel for him because that wear and tear is going to start coming up, pretty quick. We're not a huge running team, so I think
Right.
James Cook could literally last 2-3 additional years if we utilize him correctly and
Right.
everything else. But whether or not he pans out, which we all hope he does.
Right. And it goes to what we talked about, we talk about all the time. the day and age of the feature back is over with. When you're paying all the money you're paying for these quarterbacks, and you're running so many RPOs and so many reads, the read option stuff and the passing game and everything else in the game nowadays. Are you going to pay a guy that type of money, and are you going to put the time in and hand them the ball 35 times a game? I don't want to take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands that many times. I'd rather go ahead and let Josh Allen make plays. So I think that's a big part of it too.
Matt just said, and unlike other pro sports, these players are forced to attend and stay in college and aren't paid until they're drafted as pro. I mean, it's a little different now with the NIL deals. Yeah. Some of them are getting paid.
There's NIL. There's guys in college getting NIL that Saquon and those guys wish they were getting.
Yes, some of these NIL deals are ridiculous, right. And they are making more money in college than they would as a rookie, unless they were, drafted in, the top 10 of the first round. So, but again, the one thing that they're not handcuffed to a contract and all that other stuff, and some of these, deals, yes, they're with sponsorships for the school themselves, but some of them are directly with that person. So if they wanted to leave the team and go to another team and and enter the portal, they might be bringing that deal with them. So I think nowadays that they do have the NIL possibility. Why not make it so that they can enter the league a little bit earlier? I mean, as a mom, I'm going to say that, I think that by the time that your child is, 18, 19, 20 years old, they are considered an adult. If they want to play football for their life, and they're going to make that decision, whether they're, 19 or 20 or 21, 22. So, I think that coming out early could be an option, as well as, the option of, even maybe doing a combo, having them be able to come out early, but then also doing that 3-year contract. So if they don't pan out, then the teams can at that point, walk away from that bad pick. So maybe doing a little bit of both.
I think ultimately though, we've thrown a lot of ideas at the wall. I mean, there's a lot of things you can talk about. You can feel bad. You can not feel bad. But ultimately, the way this gets fixed is the new leadership of the NFLPA comes in, and he petitions the owners and says, look, I understand we got, another 5 years, I think, left on the collective bargaining agreement. Somehow, some way, get them to the table early, and somehow, some way, get this thing renegotiated to where it's back to where it should be, which is in favor of the players and in favor of the guys that go out every week and risk their lives and livelihood and everything else. It's a shame that we're in this situation, and it bums me out that we're in this situation, because I would have thought by 2023 we would have figured it out as a union and as players, that you are the reason people come to the games. They want to see players. They don't want to see the ownership. They don't really care about the coaches too much. I mean, we complain about them, whatever, but the reason you spend all that money and you're going to spend the seat licenses at the new stadium, you come to watch the players.
Right.
And these guys at some point have to have somebody come along and say, look, guys, there's going to be some short-term pain here. We're going to feel the pain a little bit, but what you're going to do is going to set up not only you, but it's going to set up years and years of guys coming up from college, because you had the courage to go out and strike and stand up for what you believe in, instead of just going ahead and taking a quick deal because everything is now and present, and they don't think about 53-year-old retired player who has one total knees, getting another one, and has all these things he has to deal with.
Right.
And
I think that a lot of these running backs, though, that are currently in this situation, they probably don't feel like they have the time to get on board with this, because even though they could be the the reason for the change, they might not feel like they're going to benefit from that change, especially if it's going to take, a year or two or three to get the change to come. So, I don't know, but do you think Saquon or Josh Jacobs will end up sitting out at all?
I think they better call up Joe Mixon and talk to him a little bit, because Joe Mixon was pretty quick to say, you know what, I'm next, and he went to ownership and asked what he needed to do to stay a Cincinnati Bengal, and he did it. Um, I don't believe that you sit out a season. I think all you do when you sit out a season is lose money, because unless next year was a whole new collective bargaining deal, they're going to be right back in the same situation next year, and probably will be offered less money because they don't have any tape from the previous year. So, in my estimation, it's never good to sit out. You've got to be present. You got to play, because if you sit out, you're forgotten about.
Right.
And I don't agree with that, and I would like to think that their agents are giving them that,
Well, all I
giving
got
them
to
that
do is show
advice.
him what Le'Veon Bell, what he
Yeah.
did.
Next thing you know,
that,
you'll be fight. Next thing you know, you'll be fighting in the UFC, right?
yeah, and I
Because
mean, he never came back from him taking off his year.
no,
Daryl put, I just came from a high school fall and winter sports orientation. High schoolers are about to sign nil deals, according to the athletic director. It's all about to change. I've been hearing that a lot with the recruiting aspect down here, with the scouts going to different high schools and trying to get them obviously to entice to sign an offer for their university or whatever. It's going to be pay for play, so at this point in time, you're pretty much not going for that scholarship anymore. You're going for the scholarship and whatever, nil deal you can get. I'm not really against that. I hate that some of these bigger universities are going to benefit from the opportunities that they get from the sponsorships. Um, you know, and that even goes with Miami. Miami has literally one billionaire who is helping, with the nil deals for the Hurricanes. So, I understand that each university is going to have the one or two people who are going to be, feeding these kids. But some of these kids are 17 years old, 16, 17 years old when they're signing their offers to go to a team. That just scares me that they're getting dangled all this money in front of their face at that age. So hopefully the, college football can figure it out. I don't like that it's kind of become a free for all with however much money that they can offer you. It's
I
becoming
think
a little ridiculous.
a very prominent AD in this region recently said to somebody I know, he gives it 2 more years. The Wild West is going to happen for about 2 more years, and then at some point, Congress is going to have to step in and regulate this whole thing. I don't think the days of paying players is going away. And a matter of fact, I'm a big proponent of paying guys extra stipends for doing what they're supposed to do. If a kid rolls in, I mean, there's some rules out there right now where you can pay a player, any player, not just football, golfers, soccer players, whatever. You can. It's called Alston money. You can give a guy up to $6,000 a year in extra money for getting grades. Okay, so a coach would set aside a grade point. You meet your grade point, you get a bonus. I have no problem with that. I think that's great. What I do have a problem with is getting $150,000 just because that's not an NIL deal to me. That's not endorsing anything. I mean, how many? Let me ask you this, Sarah. And you're in one of the most visible, high traffic, Hollywood like cities in the world. How many college kids have you seen on television, in newspapers, or wherever else, advertising and doing ads for a specific product that they are getting paid supposedly to endorse?
I have seen a little bit down here in Miami, a couple of things going on with like a local car shop and stuff like that. But that's the thing. They're driving around in, you know, Lexuses, and I mean,
Right.
supposedly one, I haven't seen it, but supposedly one had a Rolls Royce. Um, like that's crazy.
I've seen one in Tulsa. It had to do with an Oklahoma State athlete, and it was a car dealership.
Yeah, that's what I said, a car shop, but I meant dealership. Yeah.
Right. So you think about it, Sarah. You got hundreds of players, you know, hundreds of athletes at a college, and you see one or two that are actually might do a halfway ad. That's the thing, is it's not about that.
Yeah, some of them
Um,
I think that you can get away with nil by showing up and signing autographs, or showing up and doing, you know, any kind of in person,
right. It's actually through
event.
Learfield. Yeah, it's actually through Learfield, which is the company that Learfield IMG that does a lot of the independent marketing contracts with schools. So like they come into Miami and Learfield says, if you hire us, we're going to sign a 3-year deal. We're going to give you 4 million, 5 million, 6 million over 3 years, but we're handling all your marketing and all your advertising. You don't have to do anything. And Learfield is actually broke off and has a branch of Learfield now where players can go put profiles in there and do things like you know, Buffalo Freddy's having a jump house Emporia for, you know, a weekend, and he wants some college guys from UB to come over, and some, you know, however many athletes, and they can sign up and come over
Right.
and make money off of doing something like that. Freddie pays IMG, then IMG pays the players, and of course, Learfield's going to keep their cut, right? So there's things like that, and you're true. It's true. You can do stuff like that, but you know, it's going to have to be regulated. Like I said, this regional AD said it's probably 2 years, but I don't see how the NCAA reins it in. They don't have the power to do it. It's going to have to be something congressional if it's
Right.
going to get
I mean,
going
it
to get.
was passed congressionally, right? That's why the nil deals were able to start happening to begin with, is because
Yeah, but if you remember correctly, Sarah, it was passed congressionally. But like for instance, Oklahoma, their governor went out. They had a couple of state representatives sponsor a law. They passed their own law that's actually like one of the most, or the most favorable NIL legislature in the country. So now you've got all these states that are passing their own stuff, right?
right,
So here
which
we go
makes it
back.
so
Right,
certain colleges can offer
right,
more than others.
right. So
Yep.
here we go back to that, right? I mean, so now you got, you know, there we're going to, my governor is a graduate of Oklahoma State. So he's going to do something so that the Cowboys have a better chance of signing somebody than say somebody in Texas, right?
Right.
That's the type of thing that's got to stop. It's got to be regulated, and so I don't know. But the cat's out of the bag, man. They're never taking money. They're never going to not pay players. And like I said earlier, I'm for it for certain reasons. Doing a good job, working hard, grades, things like that. Going to a school and reading Dr. Seuss to the first graders. Flow the dude 250, $300. I think it's
Yeah.
awesome, you know. But don't
Yeah.
don't lie. Don't
We're
lie and
talking
call it.
we're talking
Yeah.
millions now. I
Yeah.
mean, there's been, I mean, granted, not all of them are, I've seen
Hey,
whether or not all of them are. Go
maybe
ahead.
that's the answer, Sarah. We can get Saquon and those guys an NIL deal so they can make their money, but then the NIL
Don't even
deal
start,
keeps
because
filling the gap.
pretty soon the NFL is going to start having freaking sponsorship patches on their jerseys, just like the NBA, and
I
it's
know.
going to get ridiculous.
I know.
It's all about money in the end. So,
I get
wherever
it.
anyone can make more money. But in the end, I think that we're all in agreement that where the running backs are right now is something needs to be done. Whether or not you said it's going to be fair, it probably won't be. But I think that they do need to start the conversation. And I hope, for Saquon's sake and for Jacob's sake, they're not the scapegoats in the end. They're not but maybe they'll at least be the ones that lead the rally for other running backs down the road. So Do you have anything else left that you wanted to talk about this week?
No, I'm just excited that the British Open starts tomorrow. I'm sure you're
All
excited
right.
about the Open Championship over in
No,
Royal Liverpool. I mean, you
no,
seem to
not
be a
really.
big golf fan, Sarah. Um, so I'm
Ah,
excited about that. We've got birthday galores in this family.
nice,
I do
nice.
get to go to a rock show, or I should say, a country rock show Saturday night with my son and some of his buddies. He bought me some tickets for Father's Day. I
Oh,
mean,
nice.
what a wonderful son that he would buy me
Yeah,
concert tickets for Father's Day.
that's
So I get to do
awesome.
that. So if I have any energy left on Saturday or Sunday rather, I'll find something to do. But no, it'll be a cool week. I'm a big fan of the British Open. It's always fun to
Nice.
watch when them guys play over there. And hey, guess what else is happening?
What?
People are reporting training camp. Man, it's
I know.
begun.
I will be leaving next probably Saturday or Sunday. I'm driving up to New York. Oh Jesus. Sorry, I just saw the comment because you started laughing. Um, but yes, I'll be leaving next weekend to go up to New York. Spending a couple of weeks up there with some family and my son before he goes back to school, going to training camp. Hanging out a little bit, and then he's back off to college, and I get to go back to my peaceful life without. I'm
You
joking.
get
Let
to
me stop.
you get to not go to the fridge and wonder where all your food is anymore.
No, the problem is that with him around, there's too much food all the time. It's every day. Are we going to go get something to eat? Can we go out to dinner? Can we go to the store and buy more? I'm like, what happened to the freaking 8 pack of burritos I bought you yesterday? So
No,
he's a
I
big
get it.
boy. He's a big boy. He
I get it.
definitely loves to put the food down. So unfortunately, it's been a little bit of a constraint on me over the summer. but
Well, since you're going to Buffalo, I got a list of groceries I need you to send me. So I'm going to Venmo you a bunch of money, and
all
I'll
right.
shoot you my address, and you can overnight me some. I need some Schwabbles. I need some Lenova. I need some hot dogs. I'm trying to think what else I need. Some Chevettas.
So
Send me a case of Chevettas. I need that.
Picasso's, you can order that online and they'll send it to you frozen, and it's actually really good.
You know what? I'll do that.
Yeah,
That's a great thing. Yeah, get some
yeah.
Picassos. You get send me some pierogies. I got a
Oh
list
yeah.
of things I need.
I know
It'd
someone
be
who makes
bad
some
if I
really good
lived up there.
pierogies, so maybe I
Oh,
can get
really?
somebody to make some. Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah. So,
I like that. Can
all
I get an
right.
NIL deal with that?
Yeah, right. There you go. So just to let everybody know, tomorrow night we have Mafia Cast, and we are going to be starting within the next week or two to kind of update the schedule a little bit. People are going to be moving around just a tiny bit, and you'll start to see some broadcasts about that. I'll be sending out a new lineup over the next couple of days, some new shows. In everyone's favorite shows will be back as well. So I'll send that out in the next couple of days. Ralph just put just to I
Yeah.
know that we didn't talk about it. That Pagula Kickin, the executive vice president out of the front office. Obviously, it was stated that he was mutual. I don't agree that it was mutual. I'm sure that there was a reason why. I've heard speculation. I'm not going to talk about the speculation because to me it's all rumors until someone else that's in the building says that's the reason why. But yeah, so I don't believe that it was mutual. I believe that they gave him the grace to leave, and said we were mutually parting ways because of that. I hope that we can act like it's status quo, and hopefully there's not going to be too much you know of a burden in the front office with that happening, especially with the stadium and everything else that he was working on.
Well, the thing that bothers me, and we'll talk more about this next show. I don't want to go too much longer because I know we've already hit an hour or a little bit longer. But I'm starting to wonder if Kim Pagula was really the visionary of this whole thing. And now that she's not around, things seem to be quite a bit different. And
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily sure if it's for the better. to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous that she's obviously not going to ever be able to come back and and take her position most likely. My understanding is that that's not going to happen. So he stepped in and was supposed to be that person. Um, Things didn't go, I guess, the way that people expected it to go or wanted it to go, and he's out. So my only concern is having the Sabres and the PSE team controlling so much. It is a lot to take care of one franchise, let alone two, and a company. With PSE and everything that they do, I think they control the Bandits as well. So it's a lot. So, and I might be wrong about the Bandits, but
You remember we had that little conversation about money a while ago? Maybe things, there's perception and reality. When you have administrators working for two teams, you're only making one paycheck, not two. So
right.
maybe there's a little bit to that. But anyway, hey, we're out of here for this week.
Yep.
Again, this is Line to Gain. We're here every Wednesday, 9 Eastern, 8 Central. Always hit them comments. Always hit that like button. Smash the subscribe button. We'll be back next week with more Bills content, more Bills talk. We'll probably get into that whole administration thing a little bit. Plus, we've got some college football to talk about as well, because we are a show that talks about college football. But she is Sara Larson. I'm the Big O Jerry Strauss. We'll be back more next week here on the Rumblies Network. As always, one love and go Bills.
Go Bills.